Edward Snowden is on the move. Earlier today, an Aeroflot flight from Hong Kong, believed to be carrying the former NSA contractor, landed in Moscow. Now the guessing game is underway where he will eventually resurface, and will it be for good? According to a WikiLeaks statement that was just released minutes ago, Snowden is bound for Ecuador. That country's foreign minister appears to back up that in a tweet, saying that the country has received an asylum request from Snowden. This is a spokesman from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence tells Fox News more leaks are anticipated. I'm Shana Bream in Washington, where we begin with former House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair, Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of this connection and possible, ultimate location for Snowden in Ecuador?
Well, it is not surprising because although Rafael Correa, the president of Ecuador, looks more Western in his clothing and in his way of communicating, he's just as authoritarian as many despots in the region. He is a Chavez light and a Chavez wannabe. Now Chavez is dead. They got Maduro as the stooge there in Venezuela. But when you talk about freedom of the press, it is not respected in Ecuador, neither is it in Venezuela or Cuba. So it's just the epitome of irony that this gentleman, Snowden, has castigated our own government because, we are withholding programs, information to the American people, and he seeks refuge in countries that don't honor any commitment to freedom of the press whatsoever. So nobody can understand what his motivation is. If it's truly to let the people know everything about the government, he is picking the worst places to seek refuge. First, China, Russia, now perhaps Cuba, Venezuela, Ecuador. They don't respect freedom of the press there, and they do more espionage than he can ever imagine.
What do you make of the time that he spent in China and briefly in Russia, if indeed that is the path that reportedly that he's been following today? Do you have concerns about what he may have shared with officials in China and Russia when it comes to secret information that he may have, and how the NSA operates, how the U.S. operates in tracking potential threats?
Absolutely. We should all be very concerned that this man may be sharing information to countries that are openly hostile to the United States, that have very open, very non-secretive in terms of their advertisement of them, programs of surveillance against the United States. Now, Snowden was against the U.S. government's surveillance on people, yet what he's doing is perhaps providing information to the very enemies of the United States of America, because China will use that information against us, so will Russia, so will Ecuador, so will Venezuela, and so will Cuba. So if this is a guy who dresses himself off as the white knight in shining armor, that knight is awfully rusty, and it's looking really bad, because that information will be used against us, and he will be compromising U.S. national security. So shame on him for what he's doing.
He has come forward to say that he didn't do this in an effort to harm the United States, that if he'd wanted to, there was information he could have released that would have gone to that end, that he wasn't trying to benefit from this, and that he wasn't trying to harm the U.S. Is it possible this started with good intentions to alert Americans into what he saw as a conflict regarding their privacy, and it's turned into something else and blown up in his face? Or do you think all along there were some nefarious motives here?
Well, we do have whistleblower protections. There were certainly actions that he could have taken to go about divulging information in a way that did not seem to be so suspect. I don't know his motivations, but I know his travels, and I know that if you're in China and then you go to Russia and you're thinking about Cuba and you're thinking about Venezuela and you end up in Ecuador, it's not because you love the United States so much and that you want to protect Americans. These are countries that are in no stretch of the imagination friendly to the U.S., and they are letting him in. Why and how? Because there's something in it for them. China's not doing it as a humanitarian gesture. Neither is Ecuador or any of the other countries. They do it because they're going to get something out from him. And what will he do with that information? He will share it to these hostile governments. That does do harm to the United States. So people, I don't know his motivations. That's to be questioned. I know that we should judge him by his actions, and these countries are openly hostile to the United States, and it calls into question what he wants to get out of this. It's a real irony that he's looking at countries where press freedoms are not celebrated, and a person like him would not survive 5 days in China or Russia or Venezuela or Cuba or Ecuador. Incredible.
All right, Congresswoman, we always appreciate your time, and you raise a lot of good points.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Well, there's been a show of bipartisan support for the Obama administration's decision to officially charge Edward Snowden. New York Republican Congressman Pete King says he fully supports efforts of the government, while other lawmakers, some of them have been